Hi, everyone. Dion Hinchcliffe here, Vice President and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, covering future of work and CIO topics.
And I'm Doug Henschen, Constellation Research Vice President and Principal Analyst, covering data to decisions, and we're your co-hosts for episode 79 of CRTV.
That's right. CRTV is your show for news, trends, and innovations in enterprise tech.
And in this episode, following the news, we'll share Dion's report on platform-based communication strategies. And Chirag Mehta, Constellation Research's newest analyst, is going to share his take on what to expect from that RSA security conference.
And in our final segment, Doug is going to share a primer on analytical data platforms, including data warehouses, data lakes, lakehouses, and the latest trends in that space. But first, let's get to the news.
So as usual, we're joined by Larry Dignan, Editor-in-Chief of Constellation Research Insights. He's got a steady stream of news every day. Also a weekly newsletter that you can sign up for at constellationnr.com. Welcome, Larry. What's up?
Everything. I mean, it's we're in the middle of earnings season and it's just a barrage of stuff. I mean, it's from everybody from Google Cloud to Microsoft to Meta. Everybody's reporting. Next week, it's, then we have Apple. It just goes on and on. But I'll just keep it really high level. And there's one question that's emerging on a lot of these cloud calls. And with the enterprise software customers or companies, the main question people are asking is how AI is affecting the IT budget. And the answer is that it kind of isn't. So the idea here is that AI budgets are being spread around the business. So it would be like the person leading customer service is the one investing in AI for that function or that use case. Marketing is in charge of, marketing co-pilots or whatever. But the idea is that the AI budget's basically becoming the business budget. And it's an interesting twist. And, what I haven't been able to figure out is whether this is something that's, being talked about by ServiceNow and Microsoft and some of the enterprise software vendors, just because, they have those dreams of ever expanding total addressable markets, TAMs going up, or whether that's the reality. But it does sort of sound like the early days of SaaS, where the business executives were driving the budget growth. And then ultimately that stuff gets kind of centralized in IT in the future. But initially it sounds like, AI, Gen AI, all the new applications that are, and co-pilots and assistants and all that stuff being rolled out is really becoming more of a business imperative. So you might see IT budgets go up a smidge, but you're not going to see this massive surge because the budgets are being spread around elsewhere.
Well, Larry, let me ask you, what's the latest on really how these latest introductions are being priced? I mean, my sense was that, a lot of Gen AI features are still in preview, and that the few that are out there, there's still kind of wait and see on pricing, that really the pricing model hasn't been firmed up or really established yet.
Well, or very expensive. We're seeing consistently that the top level models are coming in at $30 a seat per user. That's more than a lot of people are willing to pay with uncertain results.
So the jury's been sort of out. And there hasn't been a ton on these analyst calls. There haven't been like a ton of things where companies are saying, yes, this led to a pop. Like the most concrete thing that I've heard was ServiceNow said their Pro Plus SKU, which is the one that has Gen AI in it, is the fastest selling thing, going that they've ever had. What's interesting there is it's still not material yet, so they're not quite breaking it out. Microsoft said, they're seeing tremendous uptake in AI, but that's more showing up in Azure workloads. right? So while the idea is that you're paying, that idea that you're paying for, you know, $30 per user per month extra, or Google Workspace has that $10, you know, Gen AI per month per user thing going. It's really showing up right now in like consumption and workloads. And I don't know if we're going to get to the point where AI is necessarily broken out in terms of, you know, we have X, Y, and Z of sales because of Gen AI, because it's going to show up in consumption and other monetization things.
Well, I mean, I think this is always about the difficulty in attribution. I think, Larry, your point is spot on. We don't look at IT budgets so much anymore. We look at overall tech spend by the organization, you know, go across all their line item budgets, because the business is spending so much more on technology directly, because they can often just subscribe to it. You know, it's interesting. And what I would suggest, yes, we're going to see AI becoming, you know, just part of the architecture in many cases, and not so much broken out. But CIO Magazine had some very interesting tidbits the other day about initial proof points, and most of them were pretty good. So, you know, I think there's hope this might turn into something as big as SaaS was back in the day. But for my big news item, this week, Microsoft had a major announcement. A new language model. Pretty much, they've been committed to OpenAI and the GPT-4, you know, family of models as kind of their main offering. But they've now released a new model, first one beyond OpenAI. It's an open source model. It's called Phi-3. There was a Phi-2, and this is Phi-3, and it's turning a lot of heads. It's getting a lot of buzz this week. It's a small language model. Yet it's one that's very highly capable. It's got 3.8 billion parameters. It's basically ChatGPT, self-contained. You can run anywhere. You can run on a smartphone. And in fact, as I was getting ready for the show, we saw videos of Phi-3 running on Android and iPhones fast. It's very, very quick. It doesn't have to connect to the network. All the data is self-contained. It's great for scenarios where privacy, IP protection, and local performance are critical. And it's been trained on high quality data. So lots of academic textbooks. It's been pre-screened. It's useful scenarios, business knowledge, academic knowledge that can be applied in a lot of general situations. And it's pre-tuned for instructive scenarios. So it's designed to be just dropped into your application, used wherever. And it's got one of the largest context windows yet, 128,000 tokens, which is, you know, much larger than most of the other ones. And that's a new high watermark, especially for a tiny model like this. And so it's very easy to use. Microsoft has it in Azure right now. It's available today. It can be accelerated with DirectX or NVIDIA chips if you really want that super high performance. And it's fast compared to a large language model, which has to pull on a lot more tokens. And so we'll see this. We'll see small models like this. There's Llama 3.8b, which 8 billion tokens, and Mistral 7b, but it greatly outperforms those. So it's going to get a lot of use, especially given its license. And so we'll see this all over the place. We're already
seeing a lot of small models. They seem to be the thing. Yeah. It's like you got to wonder how much Microsoft wants to promote it, considering how much money it spent on a large model.
Well, as long as they get the model to run in their cloud, they get some money out of it, right? So that's the thing.
Well, the other thing here is Microsoft has to sort of show it can do other models other than OpenAI's.
Bingo.
Because if you look at, there was a news hit this week of Moderna working with OpenAI Enterprise on a bunch of custom GPTs internally and things like that. So, you know, at some point, Microsoft and OpenAI are going to bump into each other in some of these accounts. And as you have AWS with Bedrock, and then you have Google Cloud Model Garden, like, you're going to need choices and lots of them. And Microsoft's going to have to talk that game. So,
yeah, well, speaking of that game, this week, when this show airs, it'll be last week. For context on all of these announcements, this week we saw Snowflake jump into the model game with its release of Arctic, and LLM. That's probably really more like a small model, said to be optimized for enterprise workloads and efficiency. Snowflake's new CEO, Sridhar Ramaswamy, is really making it his mission to catch up quickly on AI and its big rivalry with Databricks. And, it was really kind of a response to last month's Databricks introduction of DBRX, their open source model that followed up on their 2023 release of DALI. Now, so both Snowflake Arctic and Databricks DBRX are open source, mixture of experts architecture LLMs. But Snowflake is claiming that Arctic is going to outperform DBRX, as well as Meta's Llama 2 7DB and Mistral's Mixtral 8x 7B on coding and SQL generation. And it said we'll have leading performance, quote, leading performance on general language understanding. Now, ultimately, the gauge of success is going to be the breadth of adoption by Snowflake customers. Ramaswamy knows that Snowflake has to be seen as a cost-effective platform for AI, not just a platform for data. So I'm looking forward to hearing more. I'll be attending the Snowflake Summit in June. I'd note that Snowflake Cortex, which is their framework, their environment for working with AI, is still in preview at this point. I'm hearing it might go GA very soon, though. And like most vendors, Snowflake is also promising to have many models available within Cortex. But having your own model really helps allay concerns about training with privacy and security sensitive enterprise data. Any thoughts on that announcement, guys?
Well, I think this confirms Larry's prediction that we're seeing the commoditization of language models, and the cost of running these things is just continuing to plummet. Phi-3 can do like 1,000 queries for a fraction of a penny. So this is happening.
Well, it's kind of weird though. Like the pricing is going to plummet, but the cost of actually training these monster models, like we haven't seen the estimate for Llama 3 yet, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't cheap. So it's a case of these, they're training a lot, but I think,
and trading against it with your own data. I mean, that's really what'll make or break. I mean, customers already complain about the cost of Snowflake. The cost of training with Snowflake, capacity is really got to prove to be cost effective. I mean, it'd be easy enough for customers to, and that's what they're doing already. If they're doing AI, they're doing it on another platform, maybe accessing the data in Snowflake because it's not quite there yet where the Snowflake platform is concerned.
Right.
Well, listen, folks, that's it for this week's news summary. Stay tuned for Dion's report on platform-based communication strategies, Chirag's preview of the RSA Security Conference, and my one-on-one primer on analytical data platforms.
Hello, this is Dion Hinchcliffe, a VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, and today we're going to explore using platform-based communication strategies to drive better business results. And really, this is about digital experience and how it benefits from a more systematic approach. This is something a research area I've been working on for about 15 years, and now we really see that we're in a place to capitalize on it. And so I tend to have a encompassing view of how we look at digital experience, and this is what I view as minimum viable digital experience for the average organization. And it really covers 3 dimensions: the customer experience, so all the experiences that we design to engage with customers and communicate with them; employee experience, so how we engage those stakeholders, how we communicate and engage with them; and finally, partners or suppliers, which is another very important stakeholder in our organization, and good communication and good digital engagement is important there. But we see that each group has a slightly different set of requirements. So customer experience benefits from terrific design. It has to be trusted. It needs to be useful, multi-channel, and personalized and contextual. Now, that's true of all the audiences, but in particular, if you want to have a growing company, if you want to have a competitive advantage, you have to really double down on those attributes to a much higher degree than to more captive audiences like employee experience or partner experience. Although those audiences now also need to have those attributes. But we see that employee experience is more of a long-term view about it has to be rewarding, and it has to be connected across a bunch of different applications and really help the employee as much as the workplace or the business itself. And with partners, we really see that there has to be incentivizing and really engaging them
particularly to work with that organization versus, let's say, competitors. And so partner experiences are also very important for holding your partners close, enabling self-service, and driving growth in the business. And this is great, but the result has been a large number of different applications in the organization. And we'll look at that in just a moment. And so this has really allowed us to arrive at the concept of the experience-driven organization, where experience is the primary boundary across which value is exchanged and created. And so you can see at the top there, we have the customer experience, the employee experience, and the partner experience are absolutely key. And design thinking drives that. Design thinking makes you very empathetic to the needs of that particular audience, and making sure you're designing for those needs and those emotional states. And you have to have experience data to do that, operational data as well. And collectively, these three experiences form your digital operating model. So that's both operations and on the IT side, DevOps or DevSecOps nowadays. And it's also where your business models live. And because the employee experience delivers customer experience, as well as the customer experience can be used as self-service. That's where transactions are done. For sales, that's for services, customer care. All the value that's delivered is delivered over these experiences, and increasingly, mostly in digital channels, but not exclusively. It really depends on the business. But if you're doing this, doing this well, you'll be, the data shows, at the top of the S&P 500 in terms of your level of performance. The highest performers in the S&P 500 are consistently what I call experience-driven organizations. And we see that we need a technical foundation to make this happen, to make it consistent, to make it secure, to bring all of our data to put the service of those experiences for those stakeholders. And we're going to need a slightly different set of digital leadership to make that happen. That's outside the scope of this talk. We're really focusing on how do we create that digital operating model. And that's where a more platform-based approach, as opposed to, if we look at the most popular technologies and solutions for digital customer experience today, there's a lot that you have to bring to bear. So everything from analytics and social media engagement and digital customer assistance, and putting all that information into a customer data platform, and ensuring customer success and content management across all of these. This is great. And you're going to use different technologies and different products for sure. But to achieve cross-experience personalization, cross-channel personalization, which is increasingly where the most value is to be had, to really drive the empathy and loyalty and retention of those audiences, wherever they are, and deliver these across eventually one-to-one customized experiences, you're going to need a more consistent way of bringing all of these pieces together so they have more consistent data, more consistent behavior. And you're still going to have these different touch points and these different products at those touch points, most likely, which is where headless content management, just the headless approach in general, says we should be able to manage from one place everything, all the different experiences and all the different types of content, all those places. And that's where we really see the end game is building or crafting or acquiring a more centralized digital experience platform that allows these communications and experiences to be brought all together into an integrated approach. And so this is marketing on the customer side, comms and engagement for all the different audiences, and for some of these, commerce as well. Right? Whereas that's an example of a business model that can be brought to bear to make this all happen. And so the data has begun to show that a more unified platform-based approach to communication in general, right? So this is whether this is marketing or this is sales or this is delivery of the product or this is customer care afterwards, whether this is online or offline, direct to consumer, doesn't matter. That because we need to have a place where all the data goes, and now increasingly artificial intelligence, we have to have a way of bringing these all together. And so to become a digital, an experience-driven organization, you have to have a more unified approach. It's more platform-based, more integrated, brings your channels together, allows you to use one common view of the customer to serve the customer across all the different channels. And yes, you'll have to break silos to do it. This is one of the reasons I said you'll have to also tweak the adjustment, adjust your organization to account, the roles, so that you have a customer experience role, a employee experience role, and a partner experience role is responsible end-to-end across all of what we would formerly call silos. And that's how you do it. Your approach has to be cross-silo, and the platform you use has to be cross-silo, and then you can actually have this integrated platform approach. And that's what we're seeing is cutting edge for communications and digital experience in 2024.
Hey folks, what's up? I'm going to be at the RSA conference next week, and there are 3 things that I'm really excited about. The first, I'm going to meet some of the chief security officers and CIOs that I closely work with. And I'm really interested in understanding what are some of the challenges that they are facing in the domain of cybersecurity, and what are some of the tools and technology that they are considering to improve their security posture. So that's first. Second is I'm scheduled to meet with software companies and services companies that is embracing AI to improve their existing product portfolio, as well as use AI to build new products. And I'm meeting a whole bunch of startups that are AI first startups in the cybersecurity domain doing really, really cool stuff. And the third is I'm meeting some of the folks from academia, especially folks who are from the neuroscience background that are looking at human behavior, because humans happen to be the weakest link in security, and how we can apply neuroscience to somewhat understand the human behavior and make sure that we don't fall for things, and we can prevent some of the breaches where we humans are responsible. So I'm very excited to be at RSA, and if you're going to be there, please do reach out, and I would love to say hi to you. See you next week.
Hey folks, Doug Henschen, VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, here to talk about analytical data platforms. What am I talking about? Well, analytical data platforms would include data warehouse platforms, data lake platforms, and increasingly what we're talking about is combined lakehouse platforms. So let's dive in. So high-scale analytical data platforms have been around for decades now, but they've steadily evolved. Where once we talked about relational database management systems deployed on premises to create data marts and data warehouses, today most of the growth is in cloud-based platforms that are delivered as a service. And what's more, the nature of the platforms has changed. So today most of these analytical systems have an underlying storage layer or closely associated data lake that's built on low-cost object storage, such as Amazon S3, but every major hyperscaler has their own object storage option. And once again, this layer is typically, obviously, in the cloud. So a modern lakehouse platform then combines this high-scale data lake with the data processing options, such as Apache Spark, and a performance-oriented SQL engine. In some cases, they have multiple SQL engines, and thus the platform can address the data engineering, AI, ML, increasingly Gen AI, which I'll lump together as data science, and then SQL-centric analytics, for BI and reporting and dashboarding and all that sort of thing. So I talked about some of the long-term trends, but let's put them in context. From 2015 to 2020, we saw a massive move to the cloud. That trend continues. Architecturally, we saw the separation of compute and storage, which is what enables you to run multiple engines against that same data in that underlying platform without having to move or copy the data. We also saw a rise in interest in data science, specifically machine learning and AI back in that time frame today. That's moving into the Gen AI area. We're also now in the middle of this 2020 to 2025 period where we've seen the emergence of blended lakehouse platforms. So now that object storage is in place as the primary storage layer, we've seen data science-oriented vendors like Databricks, for example, bolster their data warehousing. And conversely, we've seen the data warehousing-oriented vendors like Snowflake, for example, bolstering their data engineering and data science capabilities. Now, both camps are trying to say to their customers, our platform will let you do it all with your data. And that's very much what the customers want. But the progress towards this nirvana of being able to handle every kind of workload continues. So customers, meanwhile, have made it clear that they don't want their data locked into proprietary formats, and for that matter, they don't want them locked into a single cloud. So they have been increasingly insistent on open standards with three formats: Apache Iceberg, Delta Lake, and Apache Hudi, in that order of popularity, being the top choices. Now, with these table structures, what it's promoting is SQL performance for the analytical workloads. So most vendors now support one or more of these open standards. Now, looking ahead, we're already seeing interest in generative AI, and this is leading vendors to add features like vector embedding and vector search to their platforms, along with better support for the unstructured data. So, text, images, audio files, video files. A lot of focus really these days on the text and unlocking that with the natural language capabilities of large language models and Gen AI. So with that better support for unstructured data, you can get things like natural language query, SQL generation. Features are widely in preview now, and in a few cases, they're even generally available. But it will really be from 2025 to 2030 that we're likely to start seeing real productivity gains where Gen AI is concerned. And so some of the promises are that it will democratize these analytical data platforms, supporting querying for a broader base of users, helping to optimize the existing queries, helping to document and explain both existing queries and new queries, because documenting, understanding what goes on in a query, what it's looking for, is very important. And finally, Gen AI promises to open up more use cases, particularly those involving unstructured content that we really haven't been using very broadly, such as documents, email, CRM notes, audio files, video files, etc. So this will turn analytical data platforms heretofore, which have been more focused on structured data analysis, columns and rows, into multimodal data intelligence platforms. So just to make it clear which vendors I'm talking about, the platforms associated with data warehousing today include the likes of Amazon Redshift, Google BigQuery, Oracle Autonomous Data Warehouse, Snowflake, and Teradata. Now, all of these vendors would be quick to tell you that they can support data engineering, data science, and AI workloads, as well as unstructured data. But today, that's not really their primary usage. That's capabilities they're adding and trying to accentuate and improve the adoption of those features, but it's not the raison d'etre, the primary use of these platforms. The second batch here, Cloudera and Databricks, really got their start supporting data engineering and data science, including AI and ML. And that was, back 10 or more years ago in the big data era. But they've added SQL-based data warehousing to effectively become Lakehouse platforms. Now, Cloudera has a big presence on premises these days and is pushing into the cloud, while Databricks is entirely in the cloud on all three of the major hyperscalers. Now, finally, there's a third camp here of the data fabric or virtual Lakehouse players, and this would include Denodo, Dremio, Microsoft Fabric, and Starburst. Now, this camp is all about accessing data where it lies without having to move it or use ETL or copying it. In the case of Denodo, Dremio, and Starburst, it's mostly about providing access and governance teamed with SQL analytics engines for distributed querying. And they also have caching layers to accelerate those mission-critical queries. Now, if you want to do data engineering and data science, that's not really what these platforms are about. They'll point you to, Spark or the third-party data science tools that your data science teams are likely already using, but that's not really what these virtualized or federated data access platforms are about. Now, Microsoft does offer multiple engines, both data science and analytics, along with its very new Microsoft Fabric platform. But I'd caution that the Fabric is a very new offering at this point, and we're just starting to see customer adoption and proof points on that platform. As far as the what to look for is, if you're starting from scratch, most vendors now do address the need for both a data lake and a data warehousing capability, meaning they effectively offer what's colloquially known now as a lakehouse platform. But a few organizations ever start really from scratch, so it's not always a clean sheet. You always have you tend to have existing estimates that you have to look out for and consider. So if you're looking to fill gaps or to modernize, or is it going to be on the data engineering side? Is it the data science side? Is it the data warehousing side? And what are the vendor's strengths? And it tends to be that where companies came from. If they came out of the data warehousing world, that's probably going to be their strength. If they came up as a data science platform, that continues to be their strength, even if both sides are trying to bolster their capabilities in the area that they weren't really known for previously. This hasn't changed overnight, and those companies are still making progress into the area that they weren't formerly known for. So the hyperscale cloud vendors, meanwhile, particularly AWS and Google, really do address both the AI, ML, Gen AI side of things, and also the data warehousing analytics. But the question then is whether you have a multi-cloud or an on-premise requirement, which they don't address so well. In the case of Google, they do have BigQuery Omni, which lets you query against some of the other data in the other clouds, but it's not really a multi-cloud a system that you can deploy on multiple clouds. Now, no matter what you choose, I would make sure that the vendor supports industry standard data formats and table formats such as Parquet and Iceberg. If it's a proprietary database format in particular, that might restrict your flexibility down the road. It can introduce friction and cost if and when you decide that you need to make a change. Now, lastly, assuming that you're choosing a modern cloud platform, I would make sure you can tap into flexible, responsive serverless capacity, particularly if you expect to be doing spiky AI and ML workloads. What's more, make sure there are automation capabilities and or a clear roadmap for increased automation capabilities if they're not quite there yet. You want administration and operations to be as automated as possible. Of course, with some knobs and dials to customize where need be to ensure that you meet SLAs. So a modern cloud-based platform should be smart enough to automate much of the system admin and even the workload optimization. And if not, that should be on their roadmap. So take a close look at that. Now, finally, I mentioned shortlists, and I'd suggest that you look at our shortlists at ConstellationR.com/shortlist and check out the 2 relevant shortlists that I offer on analytical data platforms. I have one on automated cloud data warehouse services. Obviously, the emphasis is on data warehouse operation that is highly automated. And the second is on hybrid cloud and multi-cloud analytical data platforms. These are the products that address those on-prem and multi-cloud requirements. So with that, I thank you for watching. Look to ConstellationR.com/shortlist, and I wish you the best of success with your tech selection.
Well, that's a wrap on episode 79 of CRTV. Get set for our next episode in just a couple weeks.
That's right. Watch for co-hosts Holger Mueller and Liz Miller, who will bring you episode 80 of CRTV. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter at CRTV_show, at our website, ConstellationR.com, and you can subscribe to Constellation Research on YouTube. And finally, also visit ConstellationR.com/blogs to subscribe to Larry Dignan's weekly Constellation Insights newsletter.
Thanks for watching and have a great week.
Okay.
And so then we are not going over on the news, right?
we could never predict, can we?
No, we always do the
goal is
opposite.
not to go over.
Yeah.
Keep it short, guys.
So the normal-
I think, right? Because we need like 10 minutes. Yeah, 10 minutes is what we need.
Give or take a few minutes.
Just go with it. Wait.
My head a little bit up there. It's not the same height as Doug. All right, you ready, Doug?
I am.
Okay.